So we're back on tape with Lieutenant Larson on 13 June, talking about Chapter 8.
Chapter 8 is called Trap in Purgatory, and that details an event that occurred on December 7th, which is also the anniversary of Pearl Harbor, which is just a coincidence. But on December 7th, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Hagee, came to visit the Marines in Ramadi. And when the General came, the Sergeant Major of our battalion issued an order that all the Marines would wear camouflage utilities. Due to the IED threat, we wore flight suits. The mobile guys wore flight suits that were flame retardant. So when the Commandant came to visit, our battalion sergeant major said, "Hey, all the Marines are going to wear camis." And so the mobile guys, for an administrative purpose, changed out of their gear that would protect their life into camis for, in my opinion, not a worthy reason. And I remember the lieutenants were like, this is not right. And at the end of the day, we're just like, hey, we're not going to rock the boat. And then other events occurred on December 7th, which are cemented in my head as to why we should have said, no, we're not going to wear camis. We're going to do what's best tactically, not administratively. And I think that's just probably a timeless lesson for young lieutenants and young NCOs in a wartime situation. On December 7th, and I hate to use the word routine because there's no routine patrol, but the mobile section was going to insert 2nd Platoon into Observation Post VA, which is here. 2nd Platoon was then going to patrol out and conduct an IED ambush in the city, probably down in this area. Mobile left. Mobile 2 left the snake pit with 4 gun trucks and 3 7-tons and traveled down to OPVA. As they were driving down in the CP, we had the report, Mobile 2 is traveling down Michigan. That's the only report we heard in the command post. And while this event was occurred, I was in the ECP2 command post listening to company TAC. The next transmission that we heard was, we've hit an IED on in between, which is this road here, and we need a CASEVAC. Now, what had happened in the meantime is the platoon got inserted into OPVA, and the 1st platoon commander, the dismounted platoon commander, said, "I'm not going to call and report this in because the mobile guy will do it." And the mobile guy said, "I'm not going to call this in because the other guy would do it." So it's important to, like, if you're doing a case study of this event, the guys in the command post didn't know that the platoon had got dropped off. So we thought the dismounted platoon was part of the IED blast, which adds confusion to us trying to help with the CASEVAC. What had happened was the mobile platoon drove down. Mobile 2, led by Staff Sergeant Ledford, then Gunny Ledford, now Chief Warrant Officer Ledford, dropped off the platoon. And as they were coming back up Michigan, they received a report that there was an IED on Michigan. So on the fly, this guy's driving. He's driving a vehicle moving at plus 30 miles an hour, receives this report, we've got an IED on Michigan. The staff sergeant then based on that information, makes a decision, which is what leaders do. He says, there's an ID on Michigan. We're going to pull off of Michigan onto this hospital road, go around, go on in between, and come back out and drive. They're essentially going to drive around the ID. Well, when they pulled off of Michigan and onto in between.
And can you show us some of the micro terrain in there?
When they pulled off of Michigan onto the hospital and then onto in between, they hit an IED. I don't know it down to the level of the street, but they hit an IED somewhere in this block, and it hit the first 7-ton. Actually, let me see what 7-ton it said. Yeah, an ID hit the first 7-ton. When it hit the first 7-ton, it disabled the vehicle, like the tires blew out and it was no longer drivable. The A driver in that vehicle hit his head on the roof and had a concussion. So in the command post, they got the report that, hey, we've got a guy that's injured on in between. We need a CASEVAC. We've got one down 7-ton. So in a situation like this, normally each unit tries to conduct their own CASEVACs and do everything themselves internally. But because this unit had a downed vehicle and a casualty, the other mobile section, Mobile 1, led by Lieutenant Mojica, came down Michigan to conduct the CASEVAC.
And Lieutenant Mojica in your novel is Rogue.
Correct, yes.
And he's the entire basis for the character Rogue. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. As they were coming down, Mobile 1 pulls in here, and when they pull up on scene, there's 7 corporals outside. Not 7 corporals, there's 8 Marines outside hooking up the vehicle, and a secondary ID explosion occurs. And when this ID explosion occurs, it was underneath the 7-ton, and here's the bottom of the 7-ton. The ID explodes, and then the pressure goes out right at the bottom of the 7-ton level, and 7 Marines and a corpsman lost either 1 or 2 legs, and 1 Marine died. When this ID went off, the Marines then had to come in and CASEVAC. And this is just a frustrating situation because you have an ID explode, and then a secondary ID explodes, and there's no action that you can take because there's no enemy. We don't know where the trigger man is. And so on December 7th, we get hit by an ID blast, and the enemy basically hit the company hard. And we just had to CASEVAC those Marines out of there. The unit then went on to, the unit that was out doing the counter ID ambush. I think this is important to note. These guys get hit by an ID explosion over here. 7 Marines lose legs or a leg, and a Marine dies. And this unit knows this has happened, and then they have to go out and conduct an ambush and not revenge kill civilians. You know what I mean? Another important point to note up is then the next day, the unit that was hit went out and did vehicle checkpoint ops after having lost Marines, seriously wounded to the point they were medevaced back to the States. the unit went out the next day and continued to operate.
And it's just the same platoon that lost Lieutenant Hendricks and then had Lieutenant Mahika take over?
Correct, yes.
So they already had some leadership challenges in terms of having been hit with those previous experiences.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Anything else on that?
No.